Hello, hello. Sorry for the slightly late start. I encountered a bit of technical difficulties signing out of the account. I needed to get a six-digit code from our good man Dan Besbris, but it's all been sorted out. And welcome, welcome everyone to the Sunday edition of the Sports Ethos Waiver Wire Show. Welcome, and I'm here to answer your questions, give out some names, some players of interest, and aside from that, I'm here to answer any questions you might have, whether player pickup related, trade related, or anything in general, fantasy related, of course. So, without further ado, I suppose we're gonna start off with some questions that have already been posted here in the chat. Thank you, by the way. Um, the first one is from Ernest, and he starts off by saying he really appreciates the content and the help. You're welcome, by the way. And his question goes: in a 12 team, nine cat head to head, how do you rank the following streamers for the week? Caruso, Sohan, Nance, KJ Martin, Zach Collins, Jericho Sims. Okay, Ernest, I'm going to answer your question in a vacuum, meaning on pure fantasy value, disregarding any specific needs that your team may have normally in head to head, nine cat especially. I would assume that you would be streaming guys in particular who should be boosting categories that you want to either support or um, compensate for because you're currently not too strong in those. Off the top, I like Caruso. Um, Nance, who has been quiet but has recently been starting to play well once again. KJ Martin, yeah, for sure. Zach Collins is very interesting to me. Then I'd go Sims and Sohan. Sohan has, been off my radar for quite a while, and I think I even recently dropped my last Sohan share in a 16 teamer. The guy showed us some, promise a while back, but recently has not been, producing the kind of defensive numbers. Let's call it what it is. And this supposedly defensive-minded forward hasn't producing the defensive-minded numbers that I picked him up for. So yeah, definitely Caruso, Nance, KJ Martin make the top of that list. Uh, I think Zach Collins and Jericho Sims are lower tier options, but they should also be considered depending on your needs, like I said. So hopefully that'll work out for you. Caruso, I like in particular because steals are really hard to find, and among the steals guys on your list, uh, who are basically Nance and Caruso at this point, Caruso is probably the guy I'd consider to be the more reliable source of steals, right? So there, I hope that works out for you. Good luck with that. All right. Second question that's already here in the chat in YouTube. All right. From Air Dunks. Drop DSJ with ball questionable to take a swing on Isaac, the Jonathan Isaac, or someone safer like Norm Powell or Josh Richardson. I'm in the middle of the pack, 8 cat roto. Okay. Um, like you really qualified it quite well, Air Dunks. Isaac is a swing definitely. Um, I think, all right. I would I would go with Norm Powell here. Powell has been steady, and despite Kawhi Leonard going off in the last game, Powell was still able to stay productive, and that's what you really want. I'm um being in the middle of the pack is not a comfortable spot as far as I'm concerned, especially in Roto. It might take a while for you to wait for Isaac to start delivering the kinds of numbers that will really boost you up the rankings. I know he can be a great contributor of steals and blocks, but uh, it's just it right now the gap between Powell and the potential that Isaac can give coming off a lengthy absence. We're talking about literally 2 seasons worth of absences here, and it's going to be quite a while. And if you'll actually note on the Sports Ethos website, it's it's return to competition conditioning. That's what's been keeping um, Isaac out of commission. And I know he's been playing what a couple, maybe a few games in the G League to ramp up his conditioning, but obviously it's a totally different animal being in the NBA. He's going to be eased in slowly, obviously. And even if he is eased in, and even if he's starting to play well, given the initial limited minutes, we're still talking about a situation where he's going to be playing behind Franz Wagner and Paulo Banquero, depending on whether or not, um, or whether or how the Magic, shuffle those forwards around. Where it's obviously already clogged up at center as it is. There's no room for him to be a small ball five. That's been pretty much covered because you've got stretch five skills up the wazoo with Ball and Mobamba. Um, and they're already cannibalizing each other's value right there. It's going to be hard, really, because um, Isaac is somebody who I would consider stashing if I'm expecting to use whatever it is that he's going to deliver after the All Star break. That's the kind of horizon I'm looking for him to start being productive. Uh, he's really more of a luxury stash as far as I'm concerned. And if you want to stash him, you better be at the top of your rankings because um, for X number of games, weeks, or whatnot, Isaac is not going to deliver the kind. You know, if you're picturing in your head top 75, top 100 numbers from the get go, no, you're just deluding yourself right there. Uh, because he's definitely not going to be able to do that for you, you know, from the moment he comes back. Okay. So I like Norm Powell. I like how he's doing. Um, and there. Uh, I think he is the play. Josh Richardson is not is somebody I consider to have too low a ceiling. And if it's just a matter of ceiling comparison, obviously I'd side with Isaac. So if it's between Richardson and Isaac, I'd go for Isaac. But if it's between Powell and Isaac, I'd go for Powell. All right. So thank you for your question, by the way, Air Dunks. And I hope, you know, but yes, going back, definitely DSJ is a drop. I've dropped Dennis Smith Jr. in multiple places. I think two of my deep leagues, especially with the Lamelo Ball, okay, situation and him potentially coming back soon. And if you've been following the website Sports Ethos, and we've been blurbing that he doesn't consider the injury to be that serious. I wasn't expecting him to be gone for too long. So yeah, DSJ is definitely not somebody I'd consider holding for the long term. All right. Who to drop? Let me get that on screen. All right. Who to drop? Wow. This is really a rough one. Who to drop? Jalen Williams, Slow Mo, or TJ McConnell? I have to make room for Giannis and Chris Middleton tomorrow. So, JC, thank you, by the way, first of all, for your question. Uh-huh. Uh, First of all, I would not activate Chris Middleton for your for his first game back. He's been gone too long. I don't expect him to outperform any of those three names you've just mentioned right away. Giannis, on the other hand, his injury, even though he's been out like several games, I think that he'll be productive right away. And depending on what your team needs, because I like TJ McConnell. McConnell has been playing far too good for him to be considered as a drop, and he will be really solid. And we're talking about top 40, top 50 production. Um, for the duration that Tyrese Halliburton is going to be, sitting with his injury. So no, he's obviously out of the equation. Now I like Jalen Williams, and I've said this multiple times, uh, both on air here in this live show and in the articles I've been writing. I like him long term. I think that he's got a promising horizon in the second half of the season. I like him. Slow mo, on the other hand, will really fill your stat sheet almost every night, though on low scoring and in um, with low free throw percentages. But that said, depending on your needs, so I would narrow it down to Williams and slow mo. So J Dub, I like a bit longer term. Slow mo, I'm pretty sure will go down in value when Cat returns. But again, he's also somebody who's a big question mark right now and a highly frustrating guy in fantasy because it's like that the his timeline for return is very vague and he's not there is no clarity or a com- concrete timeline as to when he'll return. So it's like him being out indefinitely means slow mo is going to be productive indefinitely as well. So if you need more points, more threes, I go for Jalen Williams. If you need more defensive stats and assists, I keep slow mo. So whichever of those guys you need the least, he's the guy you're going to drop. Obviously for Giannis, um, and whoever else is the other guy, that's who you will drop for Chris once he's playing okay. It's all right to miss out. Um, I mean, we're talking about Monday here. It's the start of the week. Bucks have 4 games, so even if you miss out on a relatively okay or pretty decent game from Middleton, I wouldn't cry over spilled milk considering who you're keeping on your active roster in the meantime. Okay, so definitely not McConnell. McConnell's like crushing it with something like top 30 value ish. I mean, obviously it's been fluctuating given the small sample size of games that Halliburton's been away, but even in that small sample size, McConnell has just been killing it so well, delivering everything you'd want from a stand-in point guard. And let's be frank, Andrew Nemhard is just not cutting it. He's not um, popping with the kind of value we're looking for, and it's really been on McConnell's shoulders to do his best to supply the Pacers with the kind of playmaking and defensive um, activity that used to come from Tyrese Halliburton. All right. So anyway, again, thank you, JC, for your question. Air Ducks just said in the chat, thank you, much appreciated for the detailed answer. You're welcome, Air Dunks. Air Dunks. All right, so Air Dunks has another question. All right, hold Grant Williams or take a chance on a luxury stash like Mark Williams? Hmm. Yes, I would take a luxury stash on Mark Williams. I think that the Hornets injury situation is not going to allow them to win too many games. And it just might kick them out of contention for the playoffs and even the play in tournament. Given that situation, there is a chance that we see them go extra young at some point or even potentially offload Mason Plumlee if they decide to pivot and shift towards a more serious approach towards the T word or tanking. Williams is somebody who will get featured more. Let's say if Plumlee is offloaded in exchange for draft picks, Plumlee is playing out of his mind, playing, I guess, arguably the best fantasy season of his career because of the increased accuracy in his free throw shooting. Yes, he's been a surprise. Admittedly, I mean, I'm gonna be first to admit it that I did not see this version of Mason Plumlee coming. Uh, the thing with Grant Williams, even though that he is a roto friendly guy, his lack of consistency is an issue to me. So if you happen to be playing head to head format, Williams can, on occasion, be lackluster. And even in my 16 team leagues, Williams is somebody who has been picked up and dropped on and off multiple times. Mark Williams, on the other hand, yes, he's only recently been on and off the Hornets rotation, but I like what I've seen. I've actually uh, saw a good scouting report on Williams, and that's kind of the reason why he was actually a flyer pick in drafts in my deeper leagues, and people were expecting him to be the backup center right away. And even at the time, there was this belief that he could edge out Plumlee, but it's obviously not going to be the case because of how well Plumlee is playing right now. But I like, I have to admit, I like what I'm seeing from Williams. He's actually a smart defender. Fine, he doesn't have as great lateral movement that you would prefer because he is that um, more of a lumbering kind of big man who's almost exclusively plays in the paint. He doesn't really have any outside or mid-range shooting to speak of. So that kind of limits him um, a lot, especially compared to the passing ability that Mason Plumlee brings to the table, especially during times and games like right now where you don't have somebody like LaMelo Ball and truth be told, Terry Rozier is really more of a combo guard and not a pass first kind of guy. And Plumlee's underrated passing game has been, pretty useful, uh, admittedly, for the Hornets. So yeah, but I like what I've been seeing from Williams. And if Plumlee just wasn't there, um, he might actually be shining right now. So there. Um, okay. So I hope that was able to address whatever it is you were hoping to find, Air Dunks. Okay, thank you. All right, next question. Thank you, by the way, everyone, for dropping by and asking all of these questions. It actually makes my job a lot easier, and I'm very happy to throw my insight and thoughts around about these players. All right, so Cody has a question for us, and he's asking Zach Collins or Mark Williams as a stash for Roto formats. 10 team, 16 team, 10 category roto with offensive rebounding. Aha. All right. We're talking about stash here, right? So I think based on the 10th category that your league has added, I prefer Mark Williams. Even though that Zach Collins is, because of his experience, is the more, how should I say, more polished option, um, despite of his advanced years in the league and his being healthy this season. Zach Collins hasn't bounced back to the level that I would have preferred to see from him, and for that matter, that's been pretty much disappointing. And I think we've seen pretty much the upside that we'd want to see from Zach Collins already this season. I'd like to be wrong in that area. And again, and as I mentioned earlier, um, as I answered Air Dunk's question, I do like Mark Williams overall. And again, and I know it's playing with theoreticals here, and I know it's a bad form to do that, but you can't help. But you have to make some at some point educated. I don't think assumptions is the right word here, but um, an educated play of what ifs, right? I know a lot of people have been playing the stash, the Isaiah Jackson, Jalen Smith game on the what if situation that Miles Turner gets traded, yada yada yada. And look at the damage that that game has done to so many teams who've held on to those two guys for too long, and it caused them to drop in their the standings. Okay, so we don't want to play that game too much or too heavily, but we are approaching the trade deadline, and it's much closer now than it was before at the start of the season. 15. We're technically 15 weeks in. We're over the halfway mark, obviously, and it's make or break. And if you're talking about a stash for the future, I think that Mark Williams, who, by the way, was able to unseat Nick Richards, who was blessed by the coach preseason as the official, all right, official backup center to Mason Plumlee as an unquestionable. Mark Williams just impressed that much. But again, he's a rookie. He'll have these so-so games, and that's why he's still lacking the consistency. But yes, his good games have been nice enough. His playing and his effort and his IQ have been good enough for him to warrant X amount of minutes and be productive during that span in those games. So, short answer, Mark Williams. He'll be the better offensive rebounder. And in Roto, that's something that'll really swing your place in the standings. Okay, Cody, thank you very much. All right, JC has another question for us. Thanks for the answer. I'm curious, how high are you with Time Lord? He's not performing given the time he has. And I'm thinking of trading both Time Lord and Giannis for Curry. Is it too much for Curry? Wow. Uh, I like Time Lord. I think it's just a matter of time, no pun intended, obviously, that he will play better. But I think, and I'm being honest here, it's more of optimism on my part as opposed to certainty that it's a matter of time that Robert Williams will start playing a lot better or closer to the value that he's been producing last season. I think that the offer is good. All right, hear me out. Curry can almost single handedly win you three pointers, the three pointers made category in any given week. On the other hand, Giannis has a more balanced stat line if you're punting free throw. But if you're concerned, yeah, and I'm just gonna walk you through or talk you through a lot of the thinking I'm going through while discussing it, is that yes, Curry will be missing time due to uh, rest, injury management, and whatnot. But so is Giannis. Giannis is missing a lot more games than I was expecting him to. He's just coming off a lengthy absence right now and is just ready to return. I guess the scenario you're looking at is packaging them both for Curry. I like the move. Frankly, it is easier to build a team around Curry than it is you. We still are far away enough from the playoff window for you to tweak your team's build. And if you follow the idea or the sorry, not the idea, but the school of thought that is always easier to stream threes from the wire, you can easily support Curry through streaming and win what you want to win. And in this case, it'll be those points and threes, obviously, right? So, that's part of the reason why I think that Curry is the way to go. So yeah, I can understand your frustrations with Time Lord. I don't think that this will be a trade you're gonna regret. And assuming your team isn't punt free throw, um, it will really swing things in your team's overall outlook as far as getting to the fantasy playoffs are concerned. Okay, JC, I hope that that works out for you. Good luck with that trade, and thank you. That was a very interesting trade scenario right there. Wow, that was a lot for 25 minutes in. Uh, just a quick, short thank you again, and a reminder to please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We do this every week. I'm now flying solo. Ethan's been busy with real life stuff, but hopefully being able to I'm hopefully able to give you guys the kind of answers you're looking for with your specific questions for your team. All right, Cody is asking now: would you trade MPJ for Durand in 14 team 9 cat? Definitely not. I I still believe in MPJ playing better as the season goes on. I know he is still coming. In this season is a matter of him coming back from his back injury, but and as a result, he has been hit or miss. But that said, there have been good enough games that he pops with points, field goal, threes, 5.5, 6 rebounds. Um, those are what I'm looking at. Duran, on the other hand, I mean, he's a rookie. He's rebounding really well, blocks occasionally, field goal is there, but free throw isn't, obviously, because he's that kind of athletic big who doesn't shoot that great from the free throw line. Just talking about potential ceiling this season, I'd have to go with MPJ, and because of that, I would not trade him for Duran. Now, I'm gonna have to go on a little bit of a limb here and infer that because of your question and because of this scenario, you're actually thinking of going for Duran because you need rebounds, right? Now, if that's the situation, you, as the MPJ uh, owner, um, should be able to ask for more than Duran. In the end, MPJ still has this tag of upside uh, attached to his name recognition. So everything I'm saying and everything I've discussed so far about MPJ, your league, if it's at all any close to competitive, should also be aware. So if you really want to make this flip, don't take Duran straight up. Ask for more. Get a better, haul of depth in exchange for MPJ because you're giving up the guy with the better ceiling. All right. Okay. So that was the last question on the queue here in the YouTube chat. And I guess now is the time that we can proceed to uh, the guys I was looking at as far as pickups are concerned. All right. Uh, whew, 1 second there. All right. I'll go a little bit deep here for a while. I play in a lot of deep leagues. I've got my eye on Delon Wright if you really need steals. He's a great streaming option for steals. I'm going to assume that everybody has already their shares of Cam Johnson. That's pretty much understandable. Uh, Mitchell Robinson. Okay, I know he's not exactly a waiver wire recommendation in the strictest sense of the word, but he's somebody I'd stash if you want, if blocks are one of the categories you're expecting to contend in come fantasy playoffs. He's at a nice window right now um, where you can buy him cheap, so to speak. Just to share, in one of my 16 team leagues, I saw him recently traded from one team to another, and the guy basically accepted Lou Dort in exchange. Kind of fair. For context, the guy who was offloading um, Mitchell Robinson is, I think, in the 12 to 14 range of our standings head to head. So he's really playing catch up. He's multiple games behind the number one seed and can't afford basically to hold on to Robinson himself. Um, and again, for additional context, that league does not have any IL slots um, on our fantasy team roster, so you could really understand how and appreciate how that uh, this slightly lengthy absence of Mitch Robinson is going to be so punitive for him because it's simply going to be a dead slot. He needs active slots, warm bodies to get as many wins or win as many categories as he can over the next 5 or 6 remaining weeks before the playoffs. All right. Uh, so there. Uh, I just want to acknowledge you, Cody, for um, typing out in chat, thanking me and your appreciation. You're very much welcome. That's what I'm here for. Um, so yeah. All right. Where was I? Sorry about that. Yes, the lawn, right? It's somebody definitely I like as a streaming option. He's definitely somebody I hold on to in the deeper formats where I'm at. Uh, I think that we can be looking at buy low, sell high situation. I've seen Onyeka Okongwu dropped in one of the standard in my 12 team leagues after the return of Clint Capella. Yeah, that's that's a big bummer. I think I own one, two on Okongwu shares, uh, but he's the guy I'd stash to be honest. Given the situation that the and we're again playing with theoreticals here, where the Hawks are at, okay, where the Hawks are at, they could be offloading John Collins. I know, sorry, yes, that's something you've heard probably over the last what 3 seasons now, but you never know. Uh, the Hawks are really sucking right now, and they win every so often, but you can tell that they are aware that they're not going to be a playoff competitive team this season. That's pretty much clear. I mean, it's not a matter of whether or not they're going to reach the playoffs anymore. But then if you get there, what's the point? Really, you're not going to be able to compete with the likes of the Sixers, the Celtics, even the Bucks once they're finally healthy. Uh, sheesh. Uh, I mean, we're talking about a team that might even struggle against the Pacers if Tyrese Halliburton is there. Just take that into account. So uh, I wouldn't be surprised. And again, we're speculating here. If uh, the Hawks blow things up, and if they do, Okongwu is somebody to consider as a stash. All right. Uh, Larry Nance has been decent last, you know, last week or so. Um, I think that sorry, not last week, but just a game and change ago, you know, Larry Nance was somebody I was eyeing, I held on to and dropped, but later wish I didn't. That kind of thing. Um, Definitely, I would consider, you know, there. Going back, just look at Alex Caruso. He was top 30 in that, you know, he had a top 30-ish game. Well, obviously that one game that he played, which the Bulls played this week, he had like something like 4 steals and 3 blocks, which is pretty much ridiculous. But again, for the defensive stats, you can't really go wrong. um, with him. Lou Dort, for example, in 2 games, um, has been a top 50 guy. I like him. Uh, the field goal has been pretty solid over the last game and change. Uh, I have a bit of concern about Jalen McDaniels. Now that Gordon Hayward has returned, even though Gordon Hayward, I think, chipped in something like a 9.55 or a 9.44 line with steals and blocks. There is a lot less touches in the near future for Jalen. I know he is more of a defensive forward, uh, but yeah, Gordon Hayward is a pickup in case he's still lying around there. Like for example, I dropped like what the hell? I dropped Trey Lyles for the Gordon Hayward. No regrets. That was a 16-team league. Um, Now, just before coming on this show, I was looking at, staring at actually, Chris Boucher. I know, I'm a glutton for punishment for doing that, but it is what it is. I currently in a two center slot league, 16 team. My only centers are Nikola Jokic and Santi Aldama. So you really can't blame me for getting tempted by Chris Boucher's 14 points a while ago. Um, it's pretty dire over there in that league, and I am tempted now. I'm looking at dropping. It's actually hard. It's my quote unquote worst guys. Uh, my worst guy is Aldama, who I cannot because I am trying to improve my PFC situation. So that leaves me with what, Seth Curry and Gordon Hayward as my least productive guys. Hayward, assuming he gets he's able to ramp up, play at better level. He's gonna produce numbers inside the top 100 if he plays a lot better, top 75 maybe. All of this, especially while Kelly Oubre is absent. I don't know. Uh, Obviously, I cannot drop my recently picked up Hayward for Boucher. So that leaves Seth Curry. But then Curry fits my build. So it's really tough. Uh, I know the move is actually to trade some of my guys because I've recent. Oh yeah, there's also Dorian Finney-Smith, who um, I picked up before Hayward. He was my last move, but I like Dorian Finney-Smith as well. He fits my recent accumulation of 3 and D guys based on my team build. I have Royce O'Neal, Dorian Finney-Smith, Bruce Brown. Those are the kinds of supporting cast I'm after. I'm basically punting blocks. English, such a hard language sometimes. Punting blocks and rebounds. Okay, right? So Boucher kind of fits. I'm preserving shooting percentages. Uh, he's a big man who can shoot threes. That's pretty much my rule. If you're a big man and you don't shoot threes, you're not allowed on this specific team. Uh, but given that it's a two-centered slot league, I would prefer to have at least 3 C eligible guys just to maximize slot usage over the course of the week. And that's something, by the way, that everyone should consider. Uh, yeah. And I think that that's um, somebody that everyone should play into or play around for that matter, getting the most games that you can out of the heavy days of the week, like Wednesdays, Fridays, etc. Those are the days that I could potentially have um, an empty slot, for example, but I'd have a player who could normally play, but because he's not C eligible, I basically need to be able to fill as many slots as often as possible, and that's kind of the hard and fast rule that I'm after. All right, so yeah, definitely Boucher. I'm really looking at him. I've already said my piece about Mark Williams, Norm Powell. All of them are obviously worthwhile pickups. Same thing with uh, what you call this, Gordon Hayward, who I mentioned earlier. Um, I'm actually considering dropping Cole Anthony despite him being a top 70 guy. Over the past week, I've been quite unhappy there. Brandon Clark is somebody everybody should have their eyes on, and I hope you guys are checking him out. Aforementioned uh, guys like Jericho Sims. Sims is somebody also worth considering here. Uh, yeah, I like. Who did I have my eye on in my deeper leagues? I actually streamed Isaac Okoro and did not regret it. Finally, for once, um, yeah, he's been pretty good. I've been pretty satisfied with that move. Uh, Now I got this question about what do you call him? Sorry, Naji Marshall. Yes, sorry about that. Mental block. You'll have to excuse me. I'm a bit flustered tonight, and just to share, uh, I had a league, a co league, a co, a member of my fantasy league who just suddenly passed away. I just found out this morning, and I'm still a bit shook. So if I'm a bit absent-minded, a bit flustered, and that's the reason why. So Kevin, wherever you are, I know you love those shout outs and you ask me to shout out to you every time I do these kinds of shows in the group chat. I know this one's a bit late, buddy, but wherever you are, shout out to you. Our drafts will never be the same, and I miss you already. Okay, so that out of the way, let's get back. Yes, Naji Marshall is somebody who has a great toe sprain or soreness. I'm not 100% sure. All I know is that we've been having a lot of toe injuries, and apparently these toe injuries can last a pretty long time. So my answer to the guy who was asking about Naji Marshall and whether or not he's a hold, in the league of his depth, in the depth of his league, again, sorry, English is not working for me right now. Given the depth of his league, I recommended that he drop Marshall if he needed the extra IL slot usage. As good as Marshall has really been um, over the course of the last handful of weeks, uh, it's really hard to account how long he's going to be away, given the toe injury. That's been kind of the narrative related to these toe injuries. People miss so much time with the toe. You really cannot push off. You can't jump if your toe is sore. As somebody who's experienced gout in the past, obviously I know it's not the same, but I have experience with toe pain, and I can speak to that at the very least. It is very difficult to move, even though I'm not an athlete. I understand the kind of movements that are restricted by toe pain, and uh, you simply cannot play basketball if your toe is hurting, scuffed, or whatnot. So I recommended that the guy move on from Marshall, and yeah, okay. Lastly, I pretty much Oh, sorry. Before we move on from the topic of Boucher, I'd like a shout out to the recent surge in value of Precious Achua. Um, he's been a very nice, pleasant surprise lately. He has been playing well for a handful of games, still outside of the top 100, but he's out. He's clearly been outplaying Boucher. Precious is worth a look as a streaming option in shallower leagues. Definitely a hold in deeper leagues until further notice. And since we're on the, we touched on a bit of speculative thinking or extrapolation for that matter on the show tonight. The Raptors, aside from the Hornets and the are another team that could really blow things up. They have a lot of tradable pieces. Pretty much everyone, I mean, if I were them, pretty much everyone who's not Scotty Barnes should be on the market, assuming they're not, you know, assuming they're not going to be in playoff contention. But the Raptors, they've surprised us in the past. They actually have a talented starting five when they're all healthy. Just looking at the game of Siakam and how he's managed to still improve his overall uh, production this season after a breakout from last. He's really quietly uh, doing well. So much so that I really feel that he's uh, underrated in so many fantasy circles. He's not as buzzy a name, obviously, but dang, the guy gets the job done. I mean, well, everybody's looking at the triple doubles or the streak of double doubles like that Domantas Sabonis is able to put up. I think that overall, in a vacuum, rankings between the start of the season and where we are now aside, the guy I'd rather have on my roster to close out the season, assuming that the Raptors aren't tanking, would be Pascal Siakam. I just like what he delivers overall. Uh, Beyond the four solid stats of Sabonis, the peripherals aren't always there. I think that the increased consistency that Siakam has in delivering those important peripherals um, are really important and underappreciated. So yeah, keep an eye on on the Raptors. If I had the luxury of stashing Precious, I would in my 16 team leagues. Um, Pretty much in the same vein that I was eyeing and considering Chris Boucher. All right, that's it. Last call for questions. Otherwise, I'm going to be wrapping it up slowly. We're almost at the 50-minute mark, and I want to end tonight's show with a thank you to everyone who came in, dropped by, hung out with me, asked questions. Again, I appreciate the questions. It's my pleasure. You've all been great, and anytime that I will be going live, I will shoot it out on Twitter. Follow me at Rotomancer. Uh, and yeah, if you have questions in the middle of the week, feel free to holler at me. I mean, just be sure to at me on Twitter. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. You please do remember that I am from the Philippines. It's bright and shining, 10 almost 11 a.m. over here where I'm at. So yeah, I will get back to you as soon as possible. So if you have any questions, shoot me your questions over on Twitter if you can't wait for this weekly show. So that being said, I'm going to call it a night. That's a wrap. I appreciate you all. Thank you. Like, subscribe, etc. Notifications. You know the drill. Till next time, folks. Bye bye.